want to thank you. We want to thank you with all of us, and I'm going to ask the Queen, Dr. Ifill, to begin, but we want to thank you first. I'm going to let Dr. Ifill begin first.
So I'm quite overcome, which is not normal for me, but I am quite overcome. And I'm overcome because this piece is so thoughtfully done, because I don't take lightly the willingness of people to reach into their own family's history and pain and make that transparent in their work. And I'm overcome because of what you said at the very beginning, which is that the experience of your grandfather stands in for others. Mm-hmm. And I will say that just at this moment, I'm overcome by how many families for several generations to come, given the state of what is happening in this moment, are likely to have this same experience and ask these same questions. And I have written about reparations and served on reparations commissions and drafted reparations legislation. And I discovered in the Maryland archives the petition signed by 13 Black lawyers in Maryland. The last one to sign it was a very young lawyer who just graduated named Thurgood Marshall, asking for reparations for a man who was lynched in 1933. And I remember being so stunned that they were talking about reparations, and they had like amounts that they thought should be given to the family, and that they thought the sheriff's department should pay to families and to the county and so forth. And I have never heard or imagined the recitation that you gave of all of the things lost. And that's what has me a little caught up.
Somebody asked me, so, I've been working on this piece for a while, and there's still more work to be done on it. I know that, and I hope to be able to sort of return to it and finish it and really polish it in the way that I really think that it should be presented. And then trying to figure out other ways of releasing the work, of really having the work live outside of a small room, whether it's on TV, whether it's whatever the form. Mm-hmm. But I know that thousands upon thousands upon thousands of families have experienced the same thing. My family is not unique in that way, right? Which I think is really important. But in working on this piece, you talk about the way in which art changes you, the way in which art can change a life. I have been opposed to reparations for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And then I worked on this piece about my grandfather. Again, I started Family Pictures and Stories 45 years ago with my father talking about not really connecting with his father, losing his father very early on in his life, but always telling us stories, that he was a union organizer, that he was, right, right? The first photograph I see of my grandfather, I see for the first time only a few years ago, and the first and only photograph I've seen of Frank Weems is in his lawyer's office preparing a suit against the state of Arkansas for his mistreatment. And so a young reporter asked me after viewing it the first time, she said, well, what did you learn about yourself? I thought, that's a really interesting question. I think that I've learned that I should actually pursue my grandfather's suit against the state of Arkansas for his mistreatment. Right? And that I had been changed from one position to the other, just working on the work, of doing the work, and really understanding what I had lost, what I had missed. and therefore what he had lost and what he had missed and what my family had missed, right? You know, the longing, the suffering, the loss, the pain, the questioning, the searching, right? You know, the endless search for one's life and
Time
the
spent
meaning
on the
of one's
side of
life.
the road, the time spent on the side of the road. Not just for him, right? But all of the ways in which that, what you call disruption, interruption of life, interruption of family, interruption of community, that leaves us on the side of the road until we can get ourselves together, until we can gather ourselves.
Yes.
And this is a story of not only Black people in this country, but of oppressed people, the amount of times that families and individuals have to start over as something else. You're never going to be what you were.
Absolutely.
And that has to be part of this reparation conversation. That's why I love this so much, because when you can
Actualize.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. That's what they claim.
It's not theoretical.
That's what they claim they want, right? What they say is we need an actual person, we need an actual descendant, we need an actual calculation, right? And those suits have struggled as well, as we know from the efforts around the Tulsa Race Massacre. But even then, I think the listing, I'm never going to get it out of my head of what is lost, because I've worked on these suits too, and I have talked about like very concrete things, but not the things that you mostly included in that list.
Right.
And it just shows me how impoverished our reparations conversation has been, because we have not wanted to give way to the truth of how much has been broken by the dehumanization of our family members.
And it's also, I think it's one of the challenges and the opportunities of being an artist. The opportunity is to really think deeply about what something means, and then to give it concrete form. And through poetry, through music, through song, we come to know in a way that we simply can't know by theory alone, right? By the law alone. It's really sort of applying that to real human beings, to flesh and blood. Somebody talked about flesh this afternoon. I think it was Amy, right? What does it mean to really have skin on something and to specify? Right, to specify. And so it opens up another level of possibility that you didn't see before, and another level of understanding of the possibility that you didn't see before.
What was the basis of your opposition to reparations before?
That I thought it might be a waste of time, that it might be a waste of our energy, that there might be other ways for us to really spend our time. So it was really sort of that maybe there was something else that we should be focused on. What can you realistically build a movement around? I didn't think that it was realistic, but now that I have a specific case, right, with a man who was attempting to do this, and the only reason essentially that it failed. His suit failed, was that the union decided not to really push for it. And they decided that he was becoming an uppity Negro, right? Because Frank was in his lawyer's office every day in Chicago saying, what is happening with my case?
Oh, he's one of those clients.
What is happening with my case, right? And so it wasn't pursued. And my hope is to have the energy to convince amazing lawyers like yourself to assist me in pushing the case forward.
So Carrie, part of why we wanted to have Sherrilyn Ifill begin was because we were thinking about the echoes through time. Of here you have your ancestor with a lawyer, and now you have our 21st century civil rights icon of a lawyer with you to continue this forward. I remember, and I promised myself that I wouldn't remain in the state of being so overcome that I can't ask you questions. And it's rare to process a new work and then respond, in real time. So I'm grateful for this. I remember maybe 2 years ago now when you first came to me in conversation and mentioned that you were thinking of this piece. And you brought up the FSA archive. And at the time I was beginning to write about racial terror for vision and justice. There was another artist, actually, Sam Levite Jones, whose ancestors as well. This is the American story, you know. And at the time, you were thinking about form. We hadn't rested on this yet. And so, as I was mentioning to Sherrilyn earlier, I think being clear about finding the right form to process the unspeakable is one of the central gifts of the artist. And we've heard this refrain throughout the conversations. Our ACLU lawyer, Lee Gellert, stating, the artist often anticipates what the lawyer then can bring to the courts, but it requires the form. One of the, and as many here know, I've adored writing about, editing a volume about Carrie's work. One of the gifts of being able to study your work is to look at how you devise form. Falling, papers falling, snow falling, unanswered questions trailing off the end of a piece. Is this one of the ways that you're giving us a new language to understand the endlessness of the loss, right, of this history? And if I would love to hear more about how you think about form to grapple with the unspeakable. Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, there are a couple of things that I'm thinking about, that I think about a lot. Like this is, you know, it's you know, for all of its flaws, it's a very demanding and a very emotional piece. And of course, I am filled with rage, right? I'm filled with rage. I'm filled with anger. And yet, if I want to be in conversation, if I want to be in dialogue, then I have to construct the work in such a way that it allows for it to be heard, right? And so I'm thinking about, how do I use voice? How do I use the image? How do I use the poetry of language? How do I use, you know, the poetry of the image to do a lot of the work, to carry a lot of the work in this really gentle way while you're talking about something incredibly violent, right? And so I think, I'm hoping that it opens up a kind of door, a little bit of a space for you to enter, regardless of your position, in order for the work to be heard, and so that it reverberates in a certain kind of way. And so that's always been a strategy that I have attempted to engage over and over and over in much of the work. I hate being shouted at. I hate being yelled at. I hate being screamed at, right? But if somebody brings to me something that allows me a space of contemplation, a space of reflection, so that I might be able to see myself in that opposition, then there's a possibility for greater dialogue. And that's what I'm interested in. Right? I'm interested in, how do you really move this thing forward, and then how do I use the practice to do the same? And the same thing is true, I think, in bringing Vijay and Jennifer here today, right? Of creating this beautiful sonic palette that just brings you in. I mean, extraordinary music, right? With an incredible level of compassion and love and embrace that is in the work that cannot be denied. It's a truth.
Can you talk about how that happened, the music? Like, I really want to hear more about, like,
Yes.
the actual composition of the music and how it came together, and because actually the music is still in my head, so it's very powerful.
But in addition to that, also, is this a way to have us think about how we prepare to see, how we prepare to face the unspeakable? You know? So we'd love to hear more about that, the duration of that too.
Yeah.
You're holding us in the space to be able to wrestle with the demons all around.
Well, you know, it's always wonderful when you're working with, with people that you collaborate with, the people that you're starting to know, right? We've been working for a while together. So, you know, we initially began our collaboration several years ago of course, with VJ, who also, of course, presented at the first Vision and Justice with Run, which fabulous, fabulous piece. You know, the first time that we worked together, and then we've worked together again more over the years, because I'm always doing something with somebody, doing something, and I love working with musicians. But we've been working on a piece called Scenes of Living and Dying. Scenes of living and dying. And so we're working out those kinds of ideas, their palette in relationship to my visuals. So it's, I think, the beginning of a really long and wonderful collaboration. So we'll present that piece in 2027. So we've got 2 years now to basically prepare for that. But it is a lot of you know, it's a lot of deep listening. It's a lot of deep listening and a lot of understanding, and the ability to play and not be afraid, and to the ability to question, and the ability to challenge one another. You know, to really speak to one another as deeply and as truthfully as we possibly can, because ultimately I think that, you know, at the end of the day, I'm only really interested in trying to get to the truth. To the truth of the matter, and how can I use everything that I know, the text, language, and I'm always thinking about language as you know, as African Americans, you know, of being able to use a language that was not meant for you, and to bend it in a way that gives it an extraordinary power and an eloquence that would not exist but for you. Right? I mean, it's really, really quite remarkable.
It's extraordinary, yeah.
You know, what we've done with music and with language, and this ability to bend language in a way that is completely new, that has been reverberating now around the world, that we have touched, right, the world with our unique sounding and our unique ability to express. And so I'm always thinking about that as a person who is limited in all kinds of ways. How do I use my limited capacity in order to underscore and uplift something that I think is authentic and true?
Can I ask one more question? Just thinking about the actual craft of the thing. The scene that of the snow, you know, where you're describing being beaten up and left. So this is another one that took me out, because, you know, one of the things I think people don't think about is how isolated the way in which people lived such isolated lives, both in the post-slavery period and in most of the first half of the 20th century. That to be left out on the side of the road is a different thing than like finding yourself on I-95. Do you know what I mean? Like, you are really disoriented, and that vision, that almost, you know, through a camera of like what you would see if you were kind of lying out with the snow and you're disoriented and don't know where you are. I mean, to me, this was another, I was like adding that to the list, the disorientation, you know, like the absolute terror and bereftness of that, and the decision about how to show that. I just wanted to hear more about how you came to that, because it was incredibly beautiful. And terrifying.
You know, I was, you know, I work all the time. Like, I work all the time. And I was in my, like, literally in my studio trying to figure it out. Like, how am I going to make this? How am I going to make this? And it was snowing outside. It was snowing, and I was, like, sitting there, you know, just sort of watching it. And I thought, this is the moment. This is it. Just walk outside on your porch and just film this. This starts. So it's really, you know, I'm always like, you know, I use like lots of shortcuts, and I don't wait for permission, you know, and I don't really, you know, it's like it's okay if it's rough. It's okay if it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work. You know? And I think that often we miss the boat, but because we're searching for perfection as opposed to searching for the emotional truth.
Oh, you just preached a word right there.
Continue.
Working on my book. Lord have mercy.
That's right.
So this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity to present before this amazing audience. I was so nervous. And again, I want to thank you all. And once again, I really want to thank VJ and Jen. Are you still there? Have they walked away?
I don't know, but they're amazing. Oh, there they are. And I could see their emotion too. We could see their emotion in the. I mean, they were visibly like emotional, and that really reverberated for all of us.
Thank you so much.
All right.